Calling home from prison is cumbersome and expensive. For deaf people behind bars, it is even tougher and sometimes impossible. The technology provided to deaf people in most U.S. prisons is a teletypewriter, a machine developed in the 60s that required users to type their messages. The system is rife with problems. Most deaf households have switched to some kind of video phone which allowed users to speak in sign language. But prisons across the country still use the outmoded system known as TTY with TDD, telecommunications device for the deaf, leaving many deaf inmates cut off from their loved ones. Right now, most deaf detainees and prisoners have absolutely no telecommunication access, according to Talia Lewis from HERD. She's been a guest on our show. We're going to do another show on deaf inmates. Texas prisons eliminate use of solitary confinement for punitive reasons. Texas correctional officials this month quietly eliminated the use of solitary confinement as a punishment for jailhouse rule breakers, positioning the state at the forefront of a nationwide push to end this practice. The change, effective September 1, only impacts the roughly 75 prisoners in punitive solitary, leaving untouched the nearly 4,000 state prisoners isolated in so-called administrative segregation. The policy changes have come in response to evolving national dialogue about the use of various types of isolated confinement. When reviewing solitary confinement as a policy and practice, we determined that as a department we can effectively operate without it, so says the Texas Department of Corrections. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. And thirdly, keeping kids and parents together, a healthier approach to sentencing in Massachusetts. Massachusetts Senate Bill S770 is aiming to keep families together while holding primary caregivers from keeping kids and parents together, a happy approach to sentencing in Massachusetts. More than 800,000 parents are incarcerated for a supportive environment where parents can heal and be held accountable for the consequences of their convictions. Community correction is something we can push in on Crossroads, and let the community sentence the person. Let the person be defined in the community. If a mother has a kid 7 years or younger, she shouldn't be no time to be punished to the community, to the church, and then community to make sure she has an invite on his child's life until they're 7 years old. So then you see the Texas that is beginning to move, or Massachusetts rather, beginning to move in that direction. And here we go, this last one. The one group we abandoned during the hurricane. Can you guess which one that is? The one group that we abandoned during the hurricane. Based on reports from several of those facilities, prisoners were not evacuated and could not flee and continued to suffer. As a result, some incarcerated people in the hardest hit areas of the prisons were left in their cells to face the flooding, water shortages, and power outages. It reports from family members and loved ones of people in these facilities are active. They eliminated the constitutional prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. In stark contrast, the American people who are big-hearted and compassionate would not even allow animals in captivity to be left behind. Zoos were reportedly staffed or dutifully cleared. Animal shelters pleaded for the safety of stray cats and dogs. Hundreds of Florida horses were relocated. Dolphins were airlifted to safety. But what about the inmates? Whatever their offense, an American jury would never sentence anyone to be deprived of medication, food, or water for weeks on end, or to die in a flood. As extreme weather events like killer heat waves and hurricanes become more common, all levels of government must develop common sense plans to better protect those whom they lock up. When Hurricane Harvey bore down on the greater Houston region, 2,109 people at a federal prison facility in Beaumont, Texas were out of luck. Federal authorities left them behind to wait out the storm. Several prisoners told family members they were stuck in their cells as water rose above their ankles up to their knees, and the smell of sewage from backed up toilets grew so intense that they had to wrap towels around their heads and their noses to breathe. I just want to say that what's happening down in the hurricane part of the country to our friends, family, our fellow human beings, they spend more time on dogs, cats, animals, and dolphins than they do on those folks incarcerated. So folk, there need to be an evacuation plan in every state for every prisoner. I was in Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary by 3 Mile Island, and we asked the warden, what are the plans if the island, 3 Mile Island, the nuclear plant erupt? He said, ain't no plans. I said, what about letting us out? Y'all don't go nowhere. So when you go to prison, regardless of what the disaster is or catastrophe, you're going to die inside that facility, irrespective of your sentence. That's been the grapevine. Now we get to that show that I've been wanting to do for some time. It's called Incarcerated Veterans and Reentry Programs. What folks don't realize that present counts and rates of veterans in state and federal prisons and local jails in 2011 and 2012, it was 855,000 per 100 veterans. Out of every 100,000 people incarcerated, 855 are supposed to be veterans. The rate was lower than the rate for non-veterans, 968. Non-Hispanic Black and Hispanic inmates make up a significantly smaller portion of incarcerated veterans, 38% in prison and 44% in jail. A greater percentage of veterans, 64% than non-veterans, 48%, were sentenced for violent offenses. Our show is about veterans, incarcerated veterans, and the number they are incarcerated, the numbers are hard to come by, accurate numbers of how many veterans we have incarcerated, but there are over 100,000, maybe 200,000 veterans in federal and state correction facilities, and they are entitled to benefits while they're incarcerated. And on top of that, it will blow your mind how veterans are treated, not only in jail, but when they get released. You think that they get certain benefits, and they are entitled to their benefits. So we're going to get into that this morning with Charles Avery, Executive Director of Veterans on the Rise, Floyd Palmer, an Air Force veteran, returning citizen, just came out 4 or 5 months ago, and Monica, an Army officer and combat veterans. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
And let me say Merry Christmas on top of that, please. How y'all doing?
Fine, thank you. I'm feeling pretty good this morning.
Okay, we're going to start off with Charles Avery, the Executive Director of Veterans on the Rise. What is Veterans on the Rise, Charles?
Well, first, thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. You know I love to talk about Veterans on the Rise.
Well, you just gave me $25. I got to get you in.
That's all. Okay. Veterans on the Rise was started back in 1999 by 3 veterans who had experienced homelessness and realized that they could do something in addition to what else was going on for homeless veterans. Alfred Burley, I need to call out his name, who is one of the founders of Veterans on the Rise and still working in the field, in the vineyards, if you will, with us to take care of the needs of homeless veterans. We're committed to providing quality care and housing to homeless veterans. We are a partner with the VA administration who assists in helping us provide 3 major products for homeless veterans. One of the programs is called Urgent and Emergent. Get it, any veteran who's off the street, living on the street, living in their cars or whatever, urgently needing to get them off the street, we have housing, temporary housing for them to put them into some shelter, some bed space, and then find a more stable place for them to live. The second product we have is a program is for the severely mentally ill, those with a diagnosis, an active diagnosis, and they stay with us for 6 months where we work on, again, getting them into the ultimate end game is permanent housing. And then the flagship program that we want to talk about that we have available, again, funded by the Veterans Administration, is Transition in Place, where we actually take veterans and veteran families, place them in housing, and they are supported by us until they're stable enough to maintain their own housing program, and then we put a lease in their name. So therefore comes the name Transition in Place. They come in homeless, we leave them with a lease in their name, and they are permanently housed.
Question, how many veterans that you provide services to are in criminal convictions or for returning citizens?
15 to 20% of them that come through that are referred to us are have a criminal justice background, and we are again very open. The term that's being floated around through the nation is shelter first. We are not concerned about your history. We want to get you into a housing program. Then we deal on whatever issues that you have in terms of bringing into the space.
Okay. My next guest, Floyd Palmer. He's an Air Force veteran and a returning citizen, and he just came out like 4 or 5 months ago. Good morning.
Good morning.
You want to share with our listening audience what you just experienced coming out of what you did, how much time you did, and you got released, where, and the things you had to go through to try to get from there, from point A to point B?
Yeah, I had did a total of 18 and a half years. And upon being released, I was released to New York Avenue homeless shelter. That was after spending...
They gave you how did you get there?
Oh, they gave me a bus ticket and told me that I was going to be leaving on a bus coming to D.C. at 8:30 in the morning, but I didn't leave till like about 11:15 that night. And
you waited in the bus station all that time?
Yeah, waited in Durham for probably about 10 hours.
For a bus?
For a bus. And then once we got to Richmond, they had another bus had been missed. So by the time I got there, I was supposed to have reported to a homeless shelter in New York Avenue with all of the little bit of belongings that I had. And then I had to go see the PO, so I was a little like, once I went and saw her, my question was, how am I supposed to get from New York Avenue with all my stuff down to where am I supposed to be going? So I went to Central Union Mission, and they were very receptive, very open to me. And then from there, I had written quite a few people while I was in prison, and some of them have responded, but I couldn't make the phone calls. So I had one number, so I just went down to the Labor Department, Mark Toll, who called Dr. Nance over at Rhode Island Avenue, CRRC, who called Veterans on the Rise, and they said, come down to Dr. Nance and do some intake, and we can take you in on that Friday. So, that's how I got involved with Veterans on the Rise. So, coming in, they gave us shelter, they gave us food, and, they gave us programming to say, get you going, but they made it perfectly clear, for you, this is temporary housing. We'll give you 60 to 90 days to start, get something going. But, after a while, I found out that 60 to 90 days went by very quickly. Trying to be back in a city like Washington, D.C., where I had no ID and none of that other stuff. So everything was, trying to go down to get the EBT and all that with no ID or whatever. So I got the total runaround.